Welcome back to RGR Craft. Well, it's been a while since an update, and we've got a ton of things going on around here, both with the channel, with the staff, with who we're going to have on where, and what we're going to be doing. So I just want to give you a preview. As you can see, the backgrounds are changing, the studio is changing. We're going to have a couple of different formats coming for you in 2020. A lot of big change for this craft beer oriented, homebrewing oriented type channel. And I'm not going to be alone. I have a contributor that's coming on, maybe a couple. We're going to give you some different perspectives on different equipment, different things that we're going to do going forward in terms of recipe development, how we go about brewing, our concepts, our techniques. We're going to share all of that. And I want to start by saying that I went and I did it. I got it done. It took a while. I had to really get things squared away and still in the process, not only of building the studio, but building out how the brewery is going to be going forward. But I did it. I went and bought a Spike stainless conical. And what I'm going to do today is tell you kind of the reasons that I did what I did in terms of the purchasing power, what my decision came down to, and how I went about it. And I'll even show you screenshots of what it all cost. So first and foremost, let's start with why Spike, and I'll tell you exactly why. If you haven't seen any of my videos before or any of my process, I use catalyst conicals right now. They are Triton plasticized bodies with a really nice big 3-inch butterfly valve at the bottom, so you can collect into a wide mouth mason jar for yeast harvesting, yeast washing, or just adding dry hops, whatever you want to do, you can use that. And the concept is really clean. When I got started back in homebrewing a couple years ago, after a 15, 20-year hiatus, I knew what I wanted to do because I had brewed in buckets in college, and I knew how that went. I knew the whole bottling routine, so I've really gone away from everything that I did the first time around. No more buckets, no more bottles. I do have a beer gun on loan from Mike, who you saw in one of the previous streams. He will be doing some more work on the channel, so you'll get to hear from that. But that's more of a one-off, putting anything in a bottle. It is not what we do each time. And both of us have the same philosophy in that kegging is the better way for me to go, and I bottle off of kegging when I need to, rather than spending all the time putting beer into bottles, letting it condition in the bottle. Just not something that I want to mess with. So here's the point. The catalyst is great in that it does a good job. I'm not as thrilled with a couple aspects of it, and I'll have a review on the catalyst coming here soon. We'll do that as well, just to kind of give you some of the differences. But I really wanted to get into more of a classically shaped stainless, specifically a stainless conical. So that took away both the flex from Spike as well as the brew buckets from SS Brewtech. Didn't want to get into any of those because I want to be able to A, harvest yeast. I want to be able to B, get the beer off the yeast when I want to. Autolysis is not really that thing that is killing people's beer flavor or anything like that. Certainly not mine. But it is something that I think you want the flexibility to be able to deal with. I did. So that's why I did what I did. That said, stainless is a severe expense. It is something that I'm going to use on this channel going forward. We're going to do a series on it. I'm going to give you all kinds of aspects about how to use it the best way that I find. And that is always some kind of hunt and pecking through techniques and procedures to do specific tasks for what you're looking for in your beer. And I wanted that flexibility. The fact that it's stainless and it's easy to clean. One thing is it's going to clean in place. So I'm very excited about that because cleaning the catalyst, especially when I'm running 2 of them in split batches, it's quite a bit. And the one thing that I want to be able to do is get the right solution made up, and I want to set it to go and let it clean in place. So very excited about that. That's the first decision that brought me to a stainless. Now, SS Brewtech has some, Spike has some. What I ended up liking is the variability and some of the features that are on the Spike that I particularly care about. A, the 4-inch top port for dry hopping, etc. And B, the fact that it has a secondary blow-off so that I can control not only pressure within the fermentation vessel, but pressure to transfer, as well as blow-off. So I wanted it all there in one port. And they have quite a setup that I've been able to add to this particular body. So that's what led me towards Spike instead of Brewtech. Now, don't get me wrong, I do use the Manifold for mashing with. A lot of good things coming from that company too, and we'll go over that in future videos as well. But the big thing is, once you get to the point where you want to spend money on stainless, there are a number of things that go into it. The interesting thing about these particular conicals is that you don't carry them around full. They're specifically warranted against that. They tell you, do not carry this full. And that is more of a systemic problem, because you have to have a place that is very close to your brew, to where you make that wort. It has to be very close to transfer. I am going to have a setup eventually once I get the conical itself, and it has been ordered. I'm going to share that with you here in a second. You have to be able to transfer it pretty closely. And particularly, the big step forward for me now is temperature control in my fermentation, and that's where I'm going long term. So that all comes together. And having to know that expense for temperature control for a chamber of some kind is out there in the future, I decided to go with Spike. I like what they have. I like all the TC components that can go on and off it however you like being able to change out my temperature probes versus sampling ports versus any configuration I want. And I actually am going to do something a little bit different than their stock setup in terms of yeast harvest that is more like a straight conical rather than one where you're producing in commercial breweries so much yeast that you don't have to worry about it. You can sample off of it, just save what you want there. For me, I want to capture the bulk of it, so it changes a little bit of the bottom dynamic, which is a 2-inch butterfly valve on the bottom of the conical that can then be used to direct, to vent, clean out. I'm going to harvest through it. So that was also a very important piece for me. So again, brought me to the Spike. Here's the dilemma. 10-gallon, 5-gallon. I went back and forth. I sought advice from my brewing friends. And what I came down to was, I am more likely to make a 5-gallon batch and split that than I am to make 10 gallons of any one recipe and split it for any reason. I only have 5-gallon kegs. I'm not looking to do 10-gallon kegs. So quite frankly, if I got into a 10-gallon conical, which is true capacity is more like 13 gallons because there's headspace there. The nice thing about the Spike is they have a dome top as well. That was going to take me far too down the road of producing way too much for what I need and what my consumption pattern is. I need to not go overboard. So I went with a 5-gallon, which expense-wise, in terms of cost per gallon for a stainless conical is much higher than the 10, but it allows for a smaller fermentation chamber. It allows for more efficiency in maintaining that temperature in terms of energy usage. It allows for me to overfill. You can fit 6 gallons with a little bit of headspace plus that dome if you really want to, but it allows me to do split batches at the 5-gallon size that I prefer, and that's why I went with it. So that was decision one. Then it was how to build it out so it can do everything that I want it to do. And so I'm going to run down real quickly what that looks like. So you're going to see a screenshot of Spike's site here, and this is my actual order, and I want to be out in the open with it, so I'm going to tell you all about it. And it starts with the unit tank itself, and they call it a unit tank. It's the body of the conical. That is the base price here of the 5-gallon. And we move in. I wanted to be able to see into the top of it for not only to judge activity, but also to see any kind of fall off, what the depth of the krausen is. I want to be able to monitor some of that visually. I am a little bit spoiled in having worked with the catalyst for so long that I have that visual insight. And while I do want light protection from the stainless, I do want to be able to actually see a few things too. So I went with the clear cap, which added a little bit of cost. And then we got into the gas manifold. And what that does is it gives you a PRV so you can relieve pressure. I think it is dialed in at 15 PSI. I'll let you know about that specifically when I get it and I set it up. It also has a gauge, and it also has an ability for you to hook up an actual ball lock so that you can feed in CO2. My whole thing is that I do saisons, I do a number of beers that I don't really want a lot of pressure on, so that is going to allow me to relieve any of that pressure, which is something that just a classic airlock has not really let me do on the catalyst in the past. So that was important to me. I also want to be able to feed it a little bit of pressure and transfer closed without any exposure to oxygen. That's important to me because I've gotten to the point in my brewing where that's one of the factors that I think can really clean up the last 10% of my beers. That's my goal, is to clean that up and remove the oxygen from the transfer processes, which is where I get the bulk of my oxygen exposure after fermentation. So, went ahead and got the whole manifold so that it comes together on a 1.5 inch TC fitting so that you can just clamp it on. The whole thing's ready to go all at once. The nice thing is you can put a valve on there too, so you can run a blow off, close the valve, then add that particular manifold, and it will allow you to then have a really vigorous big fermentation and still use those advanced pieces later on in the process for transfer, for clean, whole 9 yards, without exposing it again. So I am going to be investing in another valve, but for right now I just went with the standard configuration. Moving on, those come with gaskets and the clamps to make sure that they all connect. I actually purchased a couple of extras because of what I'm going to do with the yeast harvest. I am going, because of that configuration, going to need the conical to be taller. So I went ahead and bought the leg extensions, the short ones, only 9 inch, because a mason jar, even at 32 ounce, is not that tall. So I went with the extensions, and the extensions, if I can scroll here and make sure that I can let you see that, the extensions are going to add 9 inches, but it also makes it a little bit more top heavy. So I went ahead and added this extended bracing shelf, which gives you a wider platform and actually offsets the casters that I also purchased here. It offsets them by about 1.5 inches in each direction, giving you a wider base for that taller conical now, which allows you to move it with a lot more safety. It's still a little top heavy, and it will be even more so once I put wort in it. But at that point, I wanted to get what I could in terms of a base out of it. I intend to leave mine pretty much in the fermentation chamber, really, really close to where I'm going to be brewing. You all saw some of my setup in one of the last videos. I'll go through that probably in depth. And I'm going to use a pump to fill the conical from the kettle straight into the fermentation chamber, not have to move it in and out. So that's the plan. So all that comes down to what you see here at the bottom. And this is going to be an experiment. We're going to use this on the channel, and we're going to go through and we're going to process each and every step to see whether we're happy with what this costs versus what we get out of it. And I hope that you guys will be here for that particular process. It's going to be a lot of experimentation. We're going to be doing things on the channel with some of my brewing friends that will come and go and be on the show. We're going to continue to do tastings. The next video is probably going to do a tasting that I'll film here in a minute. And we're going to move through the whole entire process of what this particular product does for my beer as evolution of what I've already been doing. So let me know if you guys are interested. If you want to talk about Spike, hit the comments below. Get your friends into this channel because we are shifting gears. This podcast will be taking over this channel eventually, and all the football content is going to be moving onto the one channel. So I just want you guys to be prepared for that. I'm excited about where this is going to go and how we're going to evolve here. So let me know what you want to see. If you're a fan of this show or this process, or you want something in particular, leave your comments below. Make sure you're subbed if you just found us. Hit the notification so you know when something comes out. And leave a thumbs up if you like this one in particular. I'm Ryan. Thanks for watching today. This is RGR Craft, and I'll talk to you next time.